What's up YouTube, and welcome back to Detox Proxy. I know I've been a little hesitant in making videos, but I've put aside some time this weekend so that I could do a little adventuring and exploring. I'm just maybe about 10-15 minutes down the highway from my home. I'm directly off the highway, and there is a trail here that what I know is called Rainbow Summit. So it's not really a marked trail. I do have some sort of map. But I've got a bag packed up with some extra water and some munchies. I did pack some bear spray just because I've never been out this way. As far as I know, you can get a really amazing view from up top, and it's not that crazy of an incline. The tree coverage is pretty good too, so I'm not too worried about getting sunburnt too badly, because that's one of my things. I placed an order for some of these LSD analogs, and I tried one maybe about 2 weeks ago now, so we'll chat about that when I get a little further down the trail. Got a cannabis canna lollipop to kind of suckle on my way up so that I can get a little bit stoned as I'm up there, and some extra joints to smoke along my way. I don't want to get too burnt out being in the sun kind of coming past the midday, because like I've said before, me and the sun just don't get along too well. So I'll grab my bag and we'll head out. I think the mic should be able to pick that up. You can hear those power lines just buzzing away. A little bit further up, I've taken a turn. You can kind of see the marker, the orange marker right there, straight ahead. And it starts getting a little bit more wet. It hasn't rained for a few days anyway. Of course, the weather up here could have been a little different. Some interesting foliage up here, and I don't expect it to continue wet. This is just probably just a crossover where some of the drainage is happening. I took a few more steps, and this little frog just jumped down into the water here. I guess this is like the first real valley anyway to look out of. Probably can't see it on this GoPro, but there's a helicopter just above those two peaks off in the distance there. Very peaceful. I just stopped to take a short break here. It's not a very steep climb, but I've gained some altitude pretty fast. Like that little water spot down there, that's pretty much where it just came up from. And now we can get a really good shot of the distance there. It's kind of the river cutting through. We'll get a better shot of it later. So I've just come up past a point where I think probably a lot of people turn around, because the trail is so grown in that it took me 20 minutes just to find how to get up in here. And I realized that this is the continuation of the trail, because there's this sketchy little bridge right here. And there's more markers. I gotta make my way up this way. I'm getting closer to the top, but man, this is kicking my ass, I'll tell you that much. Now it's probably one of the hottest, sunniest days that we've had here, so I've been just sweating like crazy. But as I get higher up, the wind started to pick up a little bit and it's a little cooler. The bugs are starting to come after me, but you can see the highway way down there. And we've got a pretty good view from right here. And I still have quite a bit higher to go. And I don't know if I'm gonna make it, but I'm gonna try to. I've probably been out here for at least an hour and a half, maybe a little longer than that. And I'm just kind of looking for my next way up. I think it's up through this way. But yeah, really, really nice view just from right here. There, the wind's died down just a little bit. You can see the amazing view I've got here. The highway's still kind of running down along that way, but you can see we've gotten a little higher and can start seeing a little better span of the water. So that's Rainbow Lake there, and then kind of further up and way over there is the mouth of the Skeena River, which is basically where it goes back out to the Pacific. So I mean, I don't know how much further this actually does go up, because the peak is kind of just like right up there, and it's been a lot of flat plateau traveling along here. So I think the trail just kind of continues along that way. Kind of got to this shady spot, and man, the flies are really bad here. They're like, I guess they're deer flies, because there's some monsters. You can pretty much hit them with a hammer and they fly away. And I thought, well, then I grabbed the bear spray. I thought I grabbed bug spray, but obviously I didn't. So yeah, I'm gonna continue on a little further. I had to change my shirt. I just absolutely soaked that other one. I'm kind of letting it hang out right now. It's kind of nice. I get up to these little grassy spots and find a nice little shady area to sit down and kind of chill out for a few minutes. And you know, when I start hearing my heartbeat just pound away in my ears, then I know it's time for me to take a break and just slow down my pace a little bit, which I have a little difficulty controlling sometimes. Now this is a little bit of a windy spot as well, but we're just gonna have to put up with it. I walked another 15 minutes and then realized that I was gonna end up going downhill off a cliff, so I walked 5 minutes back, and this is where I've made it to. It's just a little bit further ahead than where we were before, but get a little better view of the Skeena River coming in here. And just a little view from up top here, you can see it's pretty barren. You've got these water pools that are gathered all over the place, and a lot of this, I'm pretty sure it's skunk cabbage. It grows wherever those wet bog holes are. But really calm spot, really serene. You can see the mountains way off in the distance there. We'll get a better glimpse of that on the way back. But I think I'm just going to set up the camera here and kind of do a little bit of filming. And as I've been hanging out, because it's just kind of cooling under the shade of this tree, I've noticed there's all these little berries that are growing out of the ground. And I know they're not blueberries, so I looked them up. They're actually called crowberries. So I actually tried one. They don't have a lot of taste, and they're not bitter or not really sweet or anything. So I might kind of grab up a handful of them, see if I can get some of them down here on camera. Like here's one here, and then like I noticed there's a lot more bluish ones. Here's one that's a little bit more blue. I don't know, that might actually be a blueberry. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna pick some berries and then we're gonna film a little bit. That one I sat on, I think. Kind of funny how interested those birds are in me, but I can understand they don't get a lot of visitors up here, even though there's a beer can hanging up in that tree. But coming up here, yeah, it was a lot of hard work. It busted my ass for sure, but it was definitely worth it. Really good workout, and shedded a lot of water. I was obviously retaining a lot of water. I was just sweating. I had my shirt laying over there in the sun, just trying to let it dry up. And I brought I brought a third shirt, just knowing that I was going to sweat a lot. But up here it's really nice and breezy and really cool, even though the sun's pounding down on me. But yeah, it's definitely worth it on a day like this, and I'm really glad that I come up. So recently, you know, I was talking about getting some LSD analogs, and through the magic of the internet, I managed to get my hands on a few of them. I've got 4 different LSD analogs that I bought 10 hits each of, and I actually got my hands on some 5-MeO DMT. Just the synthetic lab stuff, not, you know, I don't have a frog in the mail or anything like that. And to be honest, I'm completely intimidated to use 5-MeO. It's not something that I'm even planning on using, but I'd rather have it on hand for the future if there's ever a point that I make that decision to actually give it a try, instead of trying to source it later on when it may become more difficult into the future. The government, I would expect them to crack down on these things a little bit, but you never know. They're definitely not the same as what the originals are, even though they're extremely comparable from my first usage of one of the LSD analogs that I've tried. So I guess first of all, my last mushroom trip was probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago now, and it was a pretty light trip. I only took 2 grams of a lighter strain that I take, and to be honest with you, I didn't really experience anything. It was that light of a trip, and so I kind of said, well, let's take a step back from the mushrooms. I have this LSD coming in the mail. I'll plan an LSD trip. So 2 weeks ago, I ended up dropping a tab of 1P-LSD, and the tabs are actually like the little square tabs. They're a little bigger than what I remember, most tabs being. And last year was my last LSD trip. It was 4 tabs altogether, and so size difference, breaking each tab down, you could certainly see a difference. And I know each of those tabs last year, which was 100 micrograms of LSD each, but these 1P-LSD tabs are 150 micrograms each. So I opted to just start with 1 tab, even though the last time I did LSD, I did all 4, which was 400 micrograms. And I must say, at the time, my tolerance was a little bit high. I had been doing a lot of mushrooms at the time, and psilocybin, it does have a cross tolerance with lysergamides, from what I've learned. So when you're doing a lot of either or, the tolerance level goes up for the other. It's just the way that it is. So I guess that's why I managed 400 micrograms last year so easily. The other thing, it was an off-brand kind of website that just could have been, not as good quality as what I recently got. So it was a Friday night, and I dropped the 1 tab, 150 micrograms. I didn't plan to take more, and I'm glad that, I didn't take more in the beginning, because it was a lot more intense than I initially expected it to be. The come up was a lot faster than I expected. I guess the way that it kind of started was more of that euphoric feeling. Not a lot of mind wandering or anything like that. Just that body sense of something taking place, and kind of riding that out for the first while. And then as the trip wore on and it got closer to the climax, I think what actually happened is a trickle of sweat rolled down my face, and I actually felt it. And then I reached for the top of my head and realized I was just soaked with sweat. I was basically overheating, I guess, and I wasn't doing anything but sitting and watching a movie or something. I can't quite remember at the time, but I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't dancing or moving. Just my body temperature had raised that much at that point. And during the climax, I would definitely say the mind started to roll a little bit faster, and thoughts came to me a lot quicker than normal, obviously. I didn't experience a lot of nervousness, but I kind of realized at that time that I didn't want the experience to climax any further, and I was saying to myself, well, this 150 micrograms is a really good place to start. Even if I had shot that up to 300, I probably could have managed it the same way that I did, but you start taking excess amounts of LSD and some really strange, wild things start to happen. Now, I know I set aside 9 or 10 hours for this trip, and I'm gonna say it probably lasted almost that long. I would say 8 or 9 hours before I really started to come down out of it. I actually felt quite tired at the end. My appetite was really good during the trip. I was able to eat a full meal, and even felt the hunger come on, and it was like, oh, I would get something to eat. And eating just made the experience that much more fun, I guess. Yeah, so is it something that I'm probably gonna see? The size of that thing, man. I guess I'll plan another one of these trips in the future. I've got 3 different other analogs to try. This was 1P-LSD, and I've got 1P-LSD and one. I don't know. I forgot what the names are. There's so many of them. So yeah, 1P-LSD, very, very similar to LSD. I would say, at that low of a level, I didn't even really notice a difference. I would just have assumed I'm on LSD. and 150 micrograms from a lab is certainly quite strong. It's probably like getting 200 micrograms from some other vendor. So yeah, I'll have to keep that in mind going into the future, because I know a few of these are I think 3 of them are 150 microgram tabs, and then there's one that's 100 microgram tab, and I expect the paper size to be a little smaller. I haven't checked them all out, but I will report on them in the future as I take them. I've had to take it easy getting up here. I think from working on the car in the garage and doing the brakes on the car is really what did me in, with bending up and down and bleeding them and whatnot. I think I put a small tear in my LCL on this leg, and it's finally gotten to the point where it's pretty much healed. It doesn't actually cause real pain, and it actually didn't cause any pain walking. It's just when I kneeled, I could feel this like tearing, burning feeling come up. Actually, I can really rub that muscle and feel something going on in there right now. So coming up here, I kind of take it easy, and I'm gonna have to take it easy getting back down. I didn't want it to stop me, and because there is no significant pain, and I can tell things have improved over the last, whatever it's been, 6 or 8 weeks now, that I've been good to go. So I'm gonna pack up here and hopefully wait for, and there's no clouds either. I'm gonna have to really deal with the sun on the way back. Here's a little different view on the way back. We'll get zoomed in, kind of see what that looks like. Got another little boggy, marshy area coming up here. I've had to kind of march my way through it. Got a little wet. Kind of funny how many frogs or toads, or I'm guessing they're frogs because they look pretty amphibious, but very surprising how many of them are up here. Boy, am I ever glad to be down out of there. To be honest, I've been lost for about 40 minutes, and I've had to backtrack my way about 3 times until I finally found a trail marker. And there's even another point where I took a picture because I was like, no, this is gonna be one of the points where I get lost. And sure enough, I got lost there when that point came up, but I've got my way through. I'm probably getting close to, maybe closer to the halfway point anyway. We're getting through it. Just back at that little log bridge, and I've noticed right along here, there is lots of blueberries. There's just tons of them. Really nice and sweet. Look at the size of these things. They won't leave me alone. I just had to stop again and pick more berries. I've been fighting off flies, but there's just so many here and they taste so good. They're so sweet and tangy. But I gotta keep on moving because the flies are starting to really kill me. Keep noticing these guys everywhere, and I came across one that was just like probably 3 times the size of this little guy. Where'd you go, little guy? Well, I've made it out alive. Luckily I had the cloud coverage and the sun at my back, so coming down was a little easier. Kind of come to the end of my water though. I've got like that much water left, and usually I keep some emergency water in the Forester, but I must have drank it on another trip. So I'm getting a little dehydrated, but luckily I've got down out of there. Now that I kind of know what that's all about, I could plan a little better in the future. If I was gonna do it again, I'd probably plan on picking more berries anyway. I'm on my 3rd shirt now. This one's nice and dry. I'm ready to jump in the Forester and go home. Hopefully I can make another one of these videos relatively soon and not have to be like 2-3 months from now, but the Forester's getting a makeover, so this is the stock height, and it's going to be a lot different very soon. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. I'm glad that I went and did it, and it was definitely worth my time coming out here. If you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here and you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button for me. Leave your questions and comments further down below, and I'll see you in the next one.